Welcome to Guitar Gavel, a place for people who love guitars. These are conversations with musicians, guitar enthusiasts, techs, and collectors about their guitar journey and their love of the instrument. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, share with your friends, and be sure to sign up for our twice weekly newsletter at guitargavel.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the Guitar Gavel podcast. It's David Still, and I wanted to say thank you for your time. Thanks for checking out the podcast, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening in your car. Thank you. Your time is your number one asset. It means so much that you would spend 30, 45 minutes or an hour checking out people's guitar stories and their journeys. But today, it's not just a guitar journey, it's a pedal journey. And I am joined by Wyatt Abrachinsky, a friend of mine from LinkedIn, a former podcast guest, and he's the man in black, and we'll talk about the t-shirt he's rocking, and his business partner, Dan Strohl. And what's up, man? These guys are with WA and Company Pedals, and they're going to give us the lowdown. And it's pedals now. It may be a number of things down the road, but we won't. We'll you guys can talk about your secret sauce on that. So Wyatt, Dan, thanks so much for being a guest. So glad you're here. Thanks for your time. Late on a Sunday night, as it turns out. So thank you so much, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, man. It's great. Why? It's great to see you again in person. You're all virtual and text. So
That's true. That's true. But thank you for having me. And hi, LinkedIn friends. Just wanted to say thank you to everybody on LinkedIn and our community who's been so supportive of not only my journey, but our journey and the business so far and all the prospects. Everybody's just so great, and I love interacting with everybody. So that's my shameless plug.
I love it, man.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So thank you. Seriously.
I say the same thing to our crew on LinkedIn as well. Thanks, everybody. So Wyatt, you've been messing around, tinkering, building for a long time. And some folks that are watching know your story, but probably many do not. So you have a really fascinating lineage into the business. And though you're a young guy, you've been doing this since you were like knee high to a grasshopper. So you have as much experience as many people that are twice your age. So if you don't mind, let's back up and kind of, how did you get involved and tell us that story, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Campbell's condensed soup version. Basically, when I got into college freshman year, I was rebellious, playing in bands, and didn't want to go to school all the time. And so my stepdad, basically, when my parents got married, we would go over to his house here and there, and he had a lot of nice gear, a lot of nice toys, and a very nice shop. And essentially, he was the one who got me into the whole thing. But I would go over and have my guitar strung up and my pickups done, and he would hook me up. And I just didn't really get the whole 6-string thing because I was playing 7 and 8 string and metal and whatnot. But eventually when my parents got a place and we all moved in together, we started moving stuff out of his shop and setting up a shop at the house. And while he was doing amp repairs, I would be like the pizza boy. I would go deliver amps and guitars and anything that he would work on to and fro. And basically it just got to meet everybody that he worked with, people that worked for him, etc. And then people started like asking me questions about what did you do? How did you fix this? And, I'm not the guy who fixes it. That's my dad, Well, ask your dad. So it was one of those things. And then eventually we had a lot of discussions, and he's like, you got to start learning to do this stuff for yourself. I don't want to keep doing it anymore. So more or less, I shadowed a lot. We'd sit on the floor, sit on the carpet, tearing down a Marshall like triple super lead or a JCM 800 and start tearing it down, retubing it, bias it up, and watch him get shocked, laugh when something blows up in smoke and stuff. The funny things. But shared a lot of good moments with that. And eventually I started becoming the face of when we would return fixed amps and whatnot. They knew me, and I was okay. Maybe it's time I start picking up a soldering iron. So inevitably, I refer to him as my dad. basically he got me a soldering iron and a bunch of little tools, bips and bobs for Christmas here and there. Just kind of kitted me out. And it's like, hey, have at it. And so I would, do little projects like Mesa dual Rex and oranges, and not little projects. Little projects. But I would try my hand at soldering, and there was no hand holding. If I lifted like the soldering lug, like the little rings, if I lifted a trace or blew an amp up, that's on me. And it was kind of that trial by fire thing. That
to be clear, none of that's happening anymore. Nothing
right,
ever.
Right. This is when you were like 7 years old, by the way. This is long time.
Yeah, no, I've never broken anything or defeated anything. But I have lifted traces and little mistakes that you would expect when you're naive with a soldering iron and stuff. Keep in mind, crowd, I have no when my dad was out there mowing the lawn and showing my twin brother how to do stuff, I was inside playing video games. So no physical adeptness, no know-how. It was not handy until now, later in life, when I got a girlfriend and I had to start doing things. But
women tend to do that.
Yeah,
people.
You'll learn plumbing real fast, kids. But so the trial by fire was really how I got into it, and then exposing myself to the local music stores and the community I worked with, and not so much just playing around, playing guitar for different bands and stuff, but more along the lines of, hey, I know you can fix my stuff. Can you help my band out? So, I mean, I've been at shows where they're like, the repair guy's here. And like, I don't even go on for my set. So, I would say that's the real drawback. But yeah, fast forward, actually, 10 years strong. I took over my dad's business about 2 years ago, full time, and on and off relationship with it. It's there's busy seasons and slow seasons. You have to wait for people to come to you with gear and kind of let your name trickle out there. I've spent only $20 in advertising my entire life ever on business cards, and this is what it's become. So
do you still have those business cards?
I still have those business cards. I have about 10 on the shelf still.
Oh, nice.
So and since then, I've taken other jobs. I've worked in restaurants. I've done little things to try and pitch in to make my rent less of a defeating blow. And it's just something I always came back to. And then recently I took a job that I got off LinkedIn, and
a real job,
real big boy job, working in an office. If you've seen Office Space, this was the job. And I think, as we all do coming out of COVID and stuff, we all have our own problems and face anxiety every day. And there's just some days where it's debilitating to go to work, and I have stomach pains and problems you don't need to hear. So more or less, Dan worked below me. I literally was having a bad day leaving work, and was contemplating leaving. And I said, you know what makes me happy? Working in just working with music. I don't care if I'm playing. I don't care if I'm fixing stuff. It's just that thing I want to do every day that makes me feel like I'm alive, and I can get my coffee and go at my own pace and do it. And it's all right. It's not about money. It's not about surviving. It's because it's what makes me happy, and I don't care how difficult that path may be. So through some, conversations, things like that, really empowered me to get to the point. And, my dad to credit, taught me, up to this point, here's the tools, really. And if you get serious about it, I'll help you. And, between him and Dan motivating me to kind of get out of the doldrums, I quit the job, took everything I had in savings and put it into the business and trying to get something off the ground, with amps in mind, particularly. I don't think anybody comes out of a fever dream saying they're going to build amplifiers, but that's what I fully intend to do, and build the best ones out there.
Yeah, we want to. Wyatt, I don't deserve any credit in this. Really, like, Wyatt's, I would say, a genius at the way he thinks about what he does. at least to me as someone who doesn't build pedals. But the only thing I told Wyatt was simply like, I went through struggles in really around the same age that he is now with drugs and alcohol, got sober. That was really, really hard. Right. But what I learned from that was like, one, life's short. Two, like, you, meaning myself and Wyatt for himself, you're the only one who can make yourself like happy. And so when you find something that fills you up, right, and brings you joy, you need to pursue it. And to his credit, like he because it's a risk, right? Like maybe there's failure or whatever. I mean, it's just, there's risk there. And he went for it. And fortunately we're really good friends. And, we decided to do this together. And to Wyatt's point, the ultimate goal, in fact, the full name of the company is WA&Co Bethlehem Pedal and Amp. We haven't built an amp yet. and so to sell or anything like that, because we know that in order to get to that point, right, there's a whole chain of builds and other things that we will need to get to. And that's expensive, but also it takes time. And in order to get there, we knew that we would want to build effects and pedals as well. So we're starting small and going that way. But every pedal that we're building and thinking about is relevant to kind of how do you build out a great signal chain and get a great tone. And then, from the guitar into a preamp maybe or whatever, and then into the amp itself. And so that's really what kind of inspired both of us. And fortunately, he has the building expertise. I have the business expertise. And so we're doing this together. That's with a bunch of help from other people as well.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a village. And I don't, when we're offline, I'm like, this is your show. I try not to talk, but I'm going to insert myself here for a second because to your story. And Wyatt, when you told me, I knew your headspace and you're like, I'm going to get a job and here's why. I'm kind of done with the tech stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was excited for you, but I also knew that wasn't your destiny and this is your destiny. And, pun intended, like this is what you're wired to do. This is your passion and joy. And I knew you wouldn't last and you didn't. And then, but it was like, I'm going to do this. And of course we kept up and because it was short-lived, a few months. And when you said, here's what I'm up to, it was with like 80 exclamation marks, not really, but I could tell through your written words, because it was like an email to me or a text message or a DM. And it was like, you're in it. Like your whole world changed just through like the 2 sentences. I knew you're back. So it's great. And it's wonderful to do something, you were meant to do, man.
Well, Dave, it's funny you say that because I gave Wyatt kind of the exact, we're friends before kind of all the deciding to start the company, right? It was just coincidence that we worked in the same building, but I gave Wyatt really the exact same advice because like you need to go through it, right? Like I've been there in my, not that, we're not that much older, but like some things you just need to go through to realize what it is you're meant to do in life. And fortunately you realize quick because some people can take a long time. Right.
So, yeah. Some people they just spend their lives being miserable. That's
right.
Another podcast. The grass is not always greener.
That's right.
So, okay, cool. Well, let's go in. We know one day we'll be doing an amplifier version of this podcast. But today it's pedals because that's where you're starting out as, and such a logical entry. So let's just go, man. I don't even know like the best leading question. When did you build your first pedal? Or if you just want to show, but there's 2 things. So you have a special hammer. So I want to make sure that, and your soldering iron, dude, like that's got to be magical too. So everyone has to see your tool because that is a very hard skill to master. And I just want to see the Wyatt soldering iron.
Yeah, I'm going to turn into cameraman and do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can.
And then I'm going to make you full screen. I'm going to bail out and y'all do your thing. Okay.
That's good. Yeah. Whatever you want to do. Let's pan this way. Okay. So this is my soldering iron that my dad got me, the legendary one.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't even know what brand it is. Honestly, you probably got it from because we have distributors and dealers.
Is there more than one company that makes soldering iron?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Right. Who knew?
Yeah.
But so this is what I call like a baby one. This is like what I use for building pedals because I have a very fine tip on it. Couldn't tell you the dimensions, so sorry guys. But I prefer to work with. Actually, give me a second for an extra prop here. So something that's very integral to the business and in my own lineage here is I work with leaded solder braid. So I don't work with non-leaded, which is like the industry standard. I don't know, toxic. Maybe I might die early. I don't know. But the conductivity, the quality, it's just, it makes sense.
That's how committed we are.
That is,
You're willing to put your life on the line.
We're sacrificing our health here.
But I love the smell of it. So when my girlfriend's like, why do you cough all the time? I'm like, ah.
Wyatt grew up around lead paint.
This is true. So, yeah, anyways, you're probably not going to get your hands on this stuff. But it's you can see it's super thin, super duper thin. I really prefer, I'm a tiny guy. I have tiny hands. I like to do very delicate work. And I think that's what makes the Enigma so special, is because we're cramming a lot into a small thing. This soldering iron up here is one that my dad built himself. And so, as you can see, it's got two modes, on and ready. One warms it up and one pretty much ready to go. And then he has the chisel tip, which I use. I use this one like especially for amplifiers when high heat is needed, and yeah, special applications like that's for when I'm working on like 1960s and 50s Fender amps and Gibson amps, and just when you need to do it right. I guess I don't know. It just feels more special. It's like an heirloom to me. But while we're at it, let's look at the Enigma. And I took some apart and have some of our recent builds out. And as you can see, I am stamping them by hand. Why is he doing that? Because I have a genuine hickory hammer. This came from my girlfriend's grandmother who recently passed away. And this is what I was able to take from her belongings. And it just meant a lot to me. I don't know. She was a great person and I feel good. So I was like, how can I incorporate this into what I'm building? So I got metal stamps, man's best friend. And I hand punch every single letter, every single number, which is why they can be inconsistent sometimes. But yeah, I think it looks cool. It's rugged. I got the idea from Fairfield Circuitry. Shout out Fairfield. Sorry.
They do make good stuff.
They make nice stuff.
Yeah.
But I like their design even more. And so what I have here is our Enigma Demo model. This is a demo of the Pro. So you can tell the Pro from the size difference. And when I mean there's a $25 upcharge for it, that's what you're getting. A more rugged, tried and true, and vertically taller, more durable chassis.
Why don't you explain the difference between all the models?
That is true. That is true. Thank you. So the difference between the Pro, the E2, and the E1. Well, let's start with the E1, the Enigma. So what we have here is just, you know, your generic Hammond chassis. I think they're 1590 A's or B's, and basically, as Steve K can attest to, when I first built it, it worked in reverse. The Enigma is also the first pedal I ever built, just to let you guys know. So how's that for
first pedal we're selling?
Yeah,
right?
well, first pedal.
Yeah.
And conceptual.
He's built pedals before.
yes. Yeah. So the first one I conceptualized an original circuit that I, from thought to paper to breadboard to actually manufacturing.
Show the guts.
So yeah, we're not going to zoom in too far on the guts, but basically, I throw in a nice rugged, thing. I always put a cool knob on. Everybody likes those, the bezeled top LED, and I think what's really signature about the Enigma is I couldn't figure out a way to fit everything inside. Now, if you see, that is a heck of a lot of stuff going on in here. So you're getting your money's worth. But basically, I couldn't figure out a way to get a circuit board and a pedal that could kind of get everything I wanted done. So what I did was I drilled out a top thing, and then I have one of those solderable lug tabs, and I literally point to point solder everything, tie resistors and capacitors together, transistors, everything is tied neatly. I use bus wire, solid core bus wire, just like you would see on something like an old Dallas Arbiter or, Tycho Brahe, just vintage pedals in general, Thomas Organ. I really like that rugged feel because that 50 years from now, it's not going to get corroded and bogged down on you. And take it from me, they're user serviceable, but you can send it back to me. That's
and
fine.
I think we would describe this pedal as a boost. Clean boost.
Okay, so let me settle this, LinkedIn crew. I consider it a preamp, and here's why. It's a preamp boost, but it's also distortion and overdrive. I wanted a pedal that does everything all in one, and depending on where you place it, it will perform a specific action.
It responds to playing dynamics and volume incredibly well. So kind of drives your tubes based on how you're playing and the volume you're playing at.
Right. It's driving. What it's doing is driving your impedance. It's driving like your signal, but not altering the amp in a negative way. It's not driving your tubes. It's not destroying the performance of your amplifier or pushing it harder to make that sound happen. It's basically taking that load off the amp and more or less putting it through the pedal.
That's why he's the tech guy, people.
But being the amp guy, so I get this question a lot. I think it's important. A lot of my friends use attenuators. I don't like attenuators.
They suck.
I don't believe in attenuators. They're just not for me because as a tube amplifier specialist, I really just don't like anything that's drawing out the power of my vacuum tubes, especially if I'm using something vintage or my personal amps, and I take good care of my stuff. So Dan, it's in front of the camera.
Oh, I'm sorry, people. There we go.
There we go.
Apologies.
Yeah, more or less, I wanted to do something that takes the load off the amp while still pushing that signal hard, and also more or less delivers on a promise and on a sound that I've never heard from a pedal. Honest truth, the reason I came up with this pedal was because Dan gave me a pedal from another boutique builder. And
yeah, really highly regarded, kind of small batch pedal.
That's right. Yes.
Yep.
And gave it to me, and it was broken. And I tried to repair it, and I destroyed it. It literally was made from very poor quality components, and I was disgusted at their price point and what they were doing. So I said it was just dishonest, and I said I can build you one better. 1 month later or less, I came out with the Enigma, and basically it is an original circuit based on like the 60s, 70s era of preamps from Bogan, which is junk, warehouse PA speakers, RCA, a little bit of RCA in there, and Vox, really. And ironically, when I think of this pedal or listen to it, I think of like an AC30, like on the point of like blowing up and roasting EL84s.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Is what he's trying to say.
I mean, yeah, simulated. I've had several discussions with our LinkedIn friends and some real intelligent people out there who were questioning how I get simulated tube response from solid state. And there's nothing in here that would give it that on a fundamental level, but I can say that it does sound a heck of a lot like a tube amp overdriven. And I think that's why I never want to really alter it. And this is a good jumping point for the E2, which, I also had to face the question, when is it too soon to modify, and when is it too soon to launch a new product? After everybody is still trying to digest the Enigma. And honestly, I came up with the E2 as a quick response to people who don't like the bass response. Keep in mind, I made this pedal for me. So the whole point is to share what I think is a transparent but also realistic snapshot of what 60s and 70s tube amps would sound like. And I'm translating that onto like solid state circuitry into a pedal for all of you to enjoy. Most people who are buying these have lived through that and they can identify. Me, I have to listen to a record.
It's also just the way guitars sound best, I think.
It's I think it's the most honest way to listen to something, and to be able to give somebody maybe even just a glimpse of something they grew up with that they can't find, or stuff that isn't around anymore. It feels really good. Back to the E2. So biggest complaint I got about the Enigma was criticism was more along the lines of it's very bassy, very gain heavy. And so what I did was I modified the circuit so that I am more or less biasing out things that are kind of causing that clipping and distortion. And the result is a heavy on presence, heavy on like emphasis on like guitar pickups, more or less. Whereas the Enigma, I think, enhances your signal, enhances your amp tone. The E2 enhances your natural guitar, so it's focusing on the woods, it's focusing on the string gauge you're using, it's focusing and emphasizing the pickups. So what really made this come alive for me and say this is it, this is Enigma perfected, is I play a made in Japan Fender 57 reissue with Texas Special, so Stevie Ray Vaughan tone, and everything I get is that big Texas twang, big spank, a lot of bass. So, when people are getting it and they're, oh, it's very bass heavy, I figured, oh, well, it's a single coil. So I started experimenting with my Gibsons and bringing in humbucker sounds and trying these with P90s, with my Jazzmaster, with any kind of Filtertrons, any kind of pickup. And this pedal sounded great on everything. It totally got rid of all that extra flub and bottoming out, bringing in AM frequencies, AM, FM radios and stuff, kind of like a wah.
Just sounds tighter.
Yeah. I kind of got out all the overdriven stuff and made it tighter, kind of like how it's being compared to the Centaur and I would even say along the lines of like a primitive like Maxon 808 overdrive. I wouldn't say it's completely transparent, but it's as close as I can get to creating a preamp boost that will satisfy both ends of the spectrum. People who, want that professional sound but don't want that bass and gain heavy pedal.
It brings forward the natural sound of the guitar almost as well as anything I've heard. Of course, I'm biased, but
it's very true. I mean, I played with this extensively, and it's not a heavy modification, but it's just enough that I have to, it's a new product. I have to adjust for the value. And also what we're doing is bringing in different quality parts. So one thing I don't particularly like in pedals is the heavy click, 3-pull, double throw, kind of clink, clink, clink. So shameless plug, Love My Switches is a family-owned pedal company. I think they're in Portland, Oregon. I'm sorry, guys, if that's not correct. I think it is. But basically, they are my full-time suppliers for these pedals and all my pedal gear. So you can check out their website.
We love them.
I love them so much. And so basically, they talk with everybody and kind of figure out what I want to change. And one thing I did was add a professional soft stomp, similar that you would see on like Walrus Audio or Digitech, where it's a kind of a silent, quick, soft thing. Steve K got the prototype of the E2, and you can probably test the nice smooth transition between signal on, signal off. And basically you could see I use Lumbergh low profile jacks inside too. One problem I can't stand is always replacing 1/4-inch jacks that break, or there's so many issues with like the guitar related ones when people use them in effects. I found these to be these are going to be my personal idea of industry standard. and they're all equipped with stereo function, switching function. So if I want to add a 9-volt in later, if somebody decides they want to have a touring model, it's easy to drop these guts out and swap them, just for a small little upgrade there. And then again, while we're at it, the Pro model is substantially bigger vertically, and I like that because it makes contact with your feet easier when you have a bigger board. Say you have a couple pedals, here. Last thing you want to be doing is tap dancing. I had 32 pedals on my board. This is from Wyatt with love. And yeah, so basically when you open one of these up, you will see that there's a 9-volt snap in there with some foam to insulate your parts and to prevent anything from grounding out, because I do use point to point. So I don't want to have any issue where somebody can't get the pedal to function. So I try to eliminate all the little bips and bobs that could cause any kind of error usage. And just all in all, I love working with the pros. I would love to see a full-scale production model in this size sometime in the near future.
We'll get there.
But we'll get there. Also, I have many plans in the works for a revision that's going to incorporate a taper and a volume. So we will work on that, but I don't want to reveal too much too soon.
Play it close to the vest, buddy.
Yes.
All right. Are you doing more on the bench?
Well, no, I mean, we can look at the bench. If you want to look at the bench.
Yeah, show them the bench.
Okay, so here's the bench. So, well, this is Scott Olson's projects. Hi, Scott. So I'm working on a couple the Klon Centaur builds. And then right here is a fuzz that I'm building for Scott that is probably going to make it to production. This is called the Titan. And what it is a 2-knob, point to point. Basically a really angry version of the Dallas Arbiter. It's been done millions of times, and I wanted to try and figure out a way to do it in a sense that nobody's done it this angry, and nobody's done it like this before. Nothing I use is germanium. There's no frills. It's just math and science, and that's the principles that I found this company on. It's just math. So, all
right, I'm going to put the camera down because I'm getting shaky.
Okay.
Your arm's getting a little tired. You did great, by the way.
It is. I'm a terrible cameraman.
So, yeah, I mean, and there's all my tools and scopes and everything and multimeters, and, the shop is a place where I've got to be able to be flexible. You never know if I have a client bringing in an amp or a guitar or a broken pedal. I get broken pedal requests, and can I send this out to you? Can you fix it for me? If you fix it, you can have it. And there's a whole wall dedicated to things that can't be fixed or need to be scrapped and things like that. So, yeah, that's the shop.
Sweet. Well, dude, I've got a couple of follow-up questions, but I love it. So I'm going to highlight my takeaways, and then you fill in any holes where I've gone wrong. And I love the two of you playing off of each other. So which is what I wanted. I wanted all the technical expertise and technical answers from Wyatt, and then Dan sums it up with like, yeah, and it's cool. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know any of the tech stuff. I just know what sounds good.
Right. Hey, and that's most people. So some of the secret sauce is, well, all the secret sauce is Wyatt's love, but the love is in the hammer that no one else has. Okay. Even though we're just yep. But listen, the hammer's got a story. The poisonous solder braid that you can't even probably buy anywhere except for whatever Wyatt has on his hands, and the custom solder iron from your dad. Like, I'm somewhat tongue in cheek here, but it's true. Like, you just are doing things that no one else, you got the special stuff, man. No one else can do it. And I love that. And that's what makes each one of your pedals and each one of your builds unique. And it's super fascinating. So those were some of my takeaways. Those were the surface level takeaways. Now I want to try to get in your brain. This will be way over what I can comprehend. Why? And forgive me if I'm asking a question that is really hard to articulate. an answer. And if that's the case, then it is what it is.
Mhm.
To take your latest Enigma build, you're going from concept and what you hear in your brain to paper to actually doing a bunch of stuff on that table to make that sound come out. How do you do that? What are you putting in it that does this? And again, I'm probably just asking the question terribly, but there we go.
Involves a lot of chickens. Never mind.
Honestly, though, I think I don't know if I could speak for any other builders or real masters in this industry, but I can definitely say 90% of what I come up with comes from dreaming and obsession. There are times where I do this 14 hours a day. There are times where I literally, like the Seinfeld episode where he wakes up in the middle of the night, fax me some halibut. He writes the joke down. I literally have pen and paper, pads, things to write down, because I will have dreams about equations and ways to wire things, and it's I guess it's just my brain.
We are obsessed is what he's trying to get to.
Yeah,
obsessed with how do we make our guitars sound great.
Exactly. And I literally, like, I don't know. I know I have some sort of ADD or something where I hyper focus on one thing at a time, but I will wake up in the morning solving problems that I have started on the bench. And then I have a breadboard by Mimotronics, which I don't have here, but he's a builder in New York, does like synths and pedal builds. And basically what I'll do is sketch the formula, sketch the parts, get my multimeter out piece by piece, making sure everything's correct, get my, ask my dad, call my dad like 3 times, trying to figure out, am I doing this right? Send him, and he's my guess and check 99% of the time. So I got to give him credit for everything I build, but and I'll be like, what's this look like? And, we'll work off each other. And then, maybe something he says doesn't sound hot to my ear. So like, I'll change it and be like, no, my way's right. And then, lo and behold, like I come out with like the fuzz and so on. And then Dan will be like, well, you should really make a filter, or, because there's a lot of builders coming out with new things, and auto wahs and filters are really hot right now. So then I started, why haven't I built a filter? How do you make a filter? So
I get into some really esoteric effects, and I also love electronic music, and obviously for a guitar player who loves electronic music, you have to do some real work to create anything near those sounds. So just plant weird ideas in his brain.
And I think it's they're supplanted and things like that, but I think if I had to tell 10 years ago, if I had to tell myself what would be the most important asset or aspect to pedal building, it's I read a lot. My dad is a huge reader. He's got pile high of books, and
it's not like entertaining stuff he's reading.
No,
it's dry technical manuals.
Yeah, it's dry manuals.
Yeah.
It's World War II, how transistors work and stuff. But I'm serious, and
real page turners.
Yeah, but I don't YouTube things. I don't steal ideas. I don't believe in there are that's the trend, is just copying the next guy before you and the next guy before you. And while I feel flattered when people want me to do builds and clone things and what commissions and whatnot, I love that because it helps me develop. But I think the best approach is to do with the knowledge that what you think is best. And when I wake up from those fever dreams, I'm sitting there in my underwear at 1 in the morning. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Picture it, people.
My girlfriend comes home to me, from her stuff, and then it's all the blinds are open, and I'm sitting there like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, and I'm like 68K. It's just, no, that can't be right. There's like, my cat is carrying around. She carries around like resistors in her mouth.
Yeah.
Like, she's
Wyatt will call me when he has a new idea, and he's like, "What do you think about this?" And he'll just start like firing off technical stuff. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know what any of that fucking means. Like, just translate it into. I'm like I played music, a lot of experience, everything like that, but I don't have the technical like pedal back, any of that stuff background. So I require him to put it into normal people terms.
But it's the challenge that gets me. It's the idea that, like, you know, my dad worked with like Cesar Diaz and Dumble and Ken Fisher, and it's the challenge. I know there's always going to be people smarter, better, and things like that, and coming out with different products, but I have no intentions of deviating from point to point, hand wired, old school 60s, 50s, and you know, 70s amps and pedals. I don't want to build anything else. There's so much talk about PCB, and I'm so grateful for the people who've been showing me, or, you know, lending their knowledge in the industry about manufacturing. But again, I'm just so obsessed with doing it this way. It's going to be so hard to change that in the future, for sure.
Yeah, we'll figure out ways. I think one of the core things that Wyatt and I have talked about is I don't think there's a lot of people bringing innovation, and I don't necessarily mean to like the effects space as much, but really to kind of just the entirety of the signal chain, and then into the amp kind of area. And we want to figure out how to make, you know, use old techniques but innovate them and bring them into the modern world. And hopefully through that we can create something and effects and amps and just anything that we end up building, and make them sound as good as anything that you can get anywhere.
It's true. Well, hey, guitars are still being made the same way they've been made for, you know, hundreds of years. So
yeah, in fact, Martin Guitars right up the road. Well, that's an exaggeration, but very close.
They're about 15 minutes away.
Yeah,
and it's I love those guys. Shout out to Martin. Thanks for having me.
I own one. I love it.
We both own one, but they invited my twin brother and I out recently, and we had a fantastic discussion. And I love their factory, and they're so kind to us over there. So, you know, we are in this epicenter, is sandwiched between New York and all these cities where it's, you know, music lives and breathes around us and is being created around us. But we also want to be that brand and that kind of business that stands out. Like, you want to go to Bethlehem because you want to see. It's kind of like Jack White with Third Man Records. You know how he brought vinyl back and the photo booth and all these cool things. Like, you want to go to experience the old, and I want people to come back just like they go to Martin to see how guitars are made. I want them to come and see and feel and break my stuff and play my stuff and just understand that this is, you know, there's something before them that still exists.
Yeah. And I think, like, so one of the things that really came, like, one of the influences that led to us starting this company was after COVID, I moved back up here with my wife and my family, and I knew that I needed to start playing live music again. Like, I hadn't a lot of experience in the past, you know, a degree from school in music and stuff like that. But I, you know, just time and things like that. And, you know, it wasn't a priority. COVID came along. I was like, man, just need to play. I don't know what happened in my life, but that was just the motivation. And so I started rebuilding my electric rig, which I had gotten rid of over the years for the most part. Just because I hadn't been using it. So sold off a lot of pieces. And through that process of, like, you know, had my amp, my guitar, and I realized, like, man, I sound like shit. Like, how, and then I was like, how do I get to the sound that I want? And, like, so I've spent the last year and a half, and Wyatt can attest to this, because, like, he has taught me a lot, but through our conversations, like, I think we both learned a lot. But how do you actually make your guitar coming out of your amp sound like you want it to, and sound good? And what I realized was, like, you know, for guitar players out there, like, there's no guide to doing this. Like, effects companies don't really help either. Like, it seems like as a guitar player, you're taught like, oh, you need to buy effects because that's what's going to make your guitar and your amp sound good. That is 100% not incorrect. You can buy the best effects in the world and put your guitar in the, plug it into your amp and you'll still sound like shit, right? There's a lot more that goes into it. And I think, like Wyatt was saying, one of the core things that drives our company is like, one, what is the key ingredients to making your sound good, right? One of those things is a really good preamp. Like, you can put aside like expensive drive pedals and all that stuff. If you have a good preamp, going from your guitar into preamp into your amp, that goes a long way. So, the Enigma kind of came out of that. And then this area, like with Martin, long tradition of in this area of making instruments and manufacturing instruments, but also Bethlehem is in this whole area is the legacy of Bethlehem Steel, which is a massive steel manufacturer, now no longer in business, but like they supplied all the steel that built the Golden Gate Bridge and most of the steel that fueled the war effort in World War II to make tanks and planes. And that legacy is still here, and like manufacturing something real here it became really important to us. And yeah, we want to make great things and help guitar players sound great without kind of having to be lost in the wilderness like I was for a year and a half and spent a lot of money buying stuff and selling it that ultimately didn't help, right? And so for me, and I think for Wyatt too, like just a huge influence and kind of motivation.
Dude, so I want to take a minute to talk about the two of you, the perfect world vision for the company in 3 or 4 or 5 years, or in 25 years. Like you started out talking about it, and I think the process and that plan sounds perfect. But I'm just curious because I know you're probably sitting on your hands on a little bit. Like amps are one day going to be in the works. Just kind of give us again a perfect world vision, what y'all ideate and dream about. Let's hear it. And then this is like a 3-part. Where can people buy the pedals? Where can we find you? And if you need to give out a phone number or an email in addition to the website, I will also include that text within the introduction part on YouTube.
Telegram. Actually,
yeah, Telegram. Pony Express only.
Yeah. The way you get
if you don't get your order by Pony Express, it just gets lost in the mail.
Well, I would say I'll speak for myself here, so we can let Dan kind of manifest his own desires, because he comes in from a business perspective, and I come in from I'm the lowly repairman. But ultimately,
that's not true at all. But like you're selling yourself short. But fair enough.
I want to like leave the legacy. Like I want my kids to get as invested and interested in it as like I got interested with my dad teaching me and gosh, there's really nobody doing like amp repairs and things like that. Even if they want to do something else, they want to be doing sports and stuff. I want to have the business, and I want to nurture those skills, because I think something that's integral to like people forming and when kids come of age and they start thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do something with my life. This is a really freaking cool job and a really fun way to live. It's financially hard where I'm at and things like that, but like if I can provide and have a family do things, and they can have a shop to come to, and like Martin, where people can walk through and they can see second generation me, and you still knock on the door and get me in the front, and like we're still building Enigmas, we're still doing this, and have like that kind of not just like a mom and pop thing, but kind of like that third man vibe where it's like they're coming into a space that's completely a playground.
Yes.
And also like everybody's thriving. And like I said, I don't have any intentions for PCB stuff unless it scales beyond my means and I have to make a decision. But as far as, I'll give you like an example. I do build amps for people, but they are substantially, we're talking in the 3 to 5K range. And it takes me about 2 hours to do an Enigma from hand. I make everything from, basically scratch. And I'm even learning fabrication to do a pedal chassis and make my own designs. So yeah, literally everything is done by hand, even the finishes. So they take me about 2 hours with love, and an amp takes me about 22. So that's something to think about when, thinking of ordering from us, and future perspective when people think, let me get an amp. Yeah, I'd love to get you an amp, but I also have 6 people who brought me guitars this week to repair and things like that. So
amps are tough to build.
Yeah, and that's also the toughest part about starting the business too, is not every day is a good day. Well, knock on wood, I've never messed up an Enigma. Like there are hiccups, and sometimes maybe a finish doesn't come out right, and I will be selling those at a discounted rate on my Reverb. That's where you can buy stuff.
Reverb.com.
Reverb.com, WA and Co.
It's a little website, you may have heard of it.
Or we'll leave my information at the end of the video for people to contact me directly. Until we get an official domain up, a website, and a place to purchase and structure orders. It's just gonna be that casual shop room floor. You come in, you place your order. I've got a list, and hopefully, you got the patience. Everybody's been so kind and so great and trusting with orders lately, and so understanding of the time frame it takes. People just love it, and they'll wait for it. And
yeah, they want quality stuff. I mean, they want good stuff,
and that's really it. You want. My dad always said, you want quick work. You got to kind of pay up, and if you want good work done cheap, you got to wait. And that's kind of, maybe the business mindset of the entire world like we're around right now with Amazon and all the streamlined quick things. Everybody's so used to getting their immediate stuff. I want this now.
Yeah.
Well, if you can wait 3 weeks, I can get you an Enigma, and it's going to last you about 40 to 50 years. Or, you can buy a Donner pedal on Amazon for $20 and then have it broken on Reverb, and I can't fix it. So
yeah, and the difference is with it obviously the price, we get it. It's not an insignificant amount of money. I think the thing that I've learned personally over, with my playing experience and learning about how do I get my tone to where I want it to be, is that there are core fundamental pieces that you can acquire that will save you a lot of time and money in the long run, but it can be the foundation of your tone and your chain, your signal chain, that provide reliability, consistency, and how your guitar is going to sound, how it's going to sound coming out of the amp, and how it's going to respond to your playing and sound great. And yeah, that's what I think these pedals that we have right now, the Enigma, is trying to achieve, and I think does.
I think so too. I think it does it really well. And if I can leave people on a note or a final note from me, really, it's basically watch It Might Get Loud, which is a fantastic documentary that changed my life and got me into music, really. It's The Edge, Jack White, and Jimmy Page get together and they jam out. And the most important thing I learned, because I know, subtle, Jack White, if you're watching, please. But Jimmy Page was just a Les Paul, a really loud plexi, and playing really hard with humbuckers.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the premise of these. It's an all-in-one, put you back in time and get rid of your 10 space pedal board.
Yep.
One pedal, one guitar, just you get the sound you need.
And very loud. That helps too.
It's super loud, but
yeah,
I think the people who are buying these understand that logic and know that there is less is more, especially in music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's my testament.
Dan, do you have any parting thoughts? Have we not covered anything that you wanted to share with the world?
I mean, no, other than, well, let me think about no, I'm just, I'm fortunate. I have a regular day job that I actually really love. And I'm fortunate. Right. And I've always said to people, like, if you like 51% or more of your job, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Cause most people, I don't know that most people have that, but when in talking with Wyatt and just discussing this and creating this company, right? Like, I just wanted to be surrounded and work on things that I love. And I've been passionate about music, grew up in a musical family, and, you know, started playing piano when I was, I don't know, 5, and then switched to guitar when I was 10. So the only way my parents would let me quit the piano is if I did another instrument. But you know what? It was the best thing my parents could have done for me. I majored in music in college. I come from a jazz background, and you know, I did a lot of music after school, and ultimately decided that, you know, pursuing that professionally, I'm not saying I would have made it, but just like that wasn't what was for me. But to be able to then to go into the professional workforce, acquire all these skills in my day job, I do a lot. What I do primarily is, one, evaluate companies and determine whether or not we should lend them money to help them grow, right? And part of that is figuring out and learning, how do you build companies? What is it that makes companies successful? And kind of the also just the stuff that nobody wants to do but is critical to like actually making an idea, which is what all a company is, into something real. It's almost an act of magic, really. And you know, for me, and I know Wyatt said this, like, yeah, I'm passionate about music. And you know, that part's true, but also there's building a company and providing jobs to people, providing stability to my family, and doing it while building or making something that you're really passionate about sounds about as good as it can get. And so, yeah, this has just been really fun. And I think for 5 years, you know, we want to build amps, right? Ultimately, I think what we want to do is build great effects, but that fundamentally lead to the amplifier and build a complete kind of set of products that will work together and sound incredible. But that takes time and a lot of work to get from point A to point B. You need manufacturing space, you need all kinds of things. And so I'm helping, you know, do that part, which is setting up kind of the steps that you need to do to kind of execute and make this real. And it's fun, right? From a day-to-day perspective, the journey's hard, but it's fun. But I hope I hope before that, but I hope within 5 years, we have a manufacturing space locally here, and we're building amplifiers that the normal musician can afford and isn't paying. Like, everyone would love a $3,000 or $4,000 custom amp, but you know, the reality is like, one, most people can't afford them, and two, it's kind of impractical, right? And the other part of it is, ultimately, like, I'm not sure that the $3,500 custom amp really improves your sound to the point that it makes that much sense to do it. Yeah. We want to build something for like $1,000, right? That is a great amp, or cheaper, who knows, that the average musician or hobbyist or whatever can buy, and it's just, their guitar is going to sound really good, and they don't have to do a lot of work for it. Yeah. And spend 2 years figuring, like, I feel like I've earned an electrical engineering degree over the past year and a half. I'm not kidding. Like, what I've had to learn, and Wyatt can attest to this, because I'll text him all kinds of insane questions. Like, why can't we simplify that for people? They don't have to learn it to make their tones great. It's just that there's nowhere else to really do it. So anyways, long story short, you know, we want to make great products, and hopefully in 5 years we'll be building a really kick-ass amp along with some kick-ass effects. Yeah.
Oh, and I like, well, you know, there's two takeaways from me here, and one's kind of it's from the whole podcast. It was from Wyatt when Wyatt and I hung out before. But look, man, when you do something you love and you're that passionate about it, you're unstoppable, because someone else is out there building pedals and they really like it. They don't love it. And so they're just never going to be as good, because they only really like it. And you have to have like that, you know, infinite affinity and love for your product or service. And when that runs through your core, you're unstoppable. And the other thing too, something Dan, you just said, is simplifying it. It sounds just like a great, it's not an angle, but it's an angle. You know what I mean? That's what you want to do, because that is what needs to be done. And y'all can do it, but that's also like, that's your selling point. That is your angle. And that's really exciting to hear you say that, and then know that at some point, whether that's time frame that we talked about tonight or earlier or later, that will come to fruition. So that's super awesome, guys. Listen, I think are we at a wrap? We good? I want you to say whatever you want to get out of the chest. Okay.
We're good.
Yeah, no, really appreciate your time and having us on. It was awesome.
Guys, thank you so much, man. I love it. Wyatt knows I love him. Dan, now you're on the love list too, man.
Yeah, man, I'm part of the fam now.
You're in it. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you guys for your time, man. Listen, we'll wrap. I'll get the information. I'll make sure we include everything, where people can find you other than Reverb for not only that, for still some amp and guitar tech repair work on top of everything that you're doing now. So Wyatt, Dan, thanks so much. Hold on. I'll end this out. Everybody who's been watching, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you on the next one.